Mistakes happen in accounting, mistakes happen in all businesses, and it's how you react to those mistakes and how you tackle the next step there. And in any business is what is important. And I think the culture of your business is what makes that successful. So if you have a blaming type of culture, people aren't going to bring their mistakes to you, and they may just get bigger and bigger until it's something that, yep, you find out about it, but you should have known much sooner. And if you have that culture of, yep, you can let me know these things, then you have the ability to get ahead of it. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Accounting with Confidence, the podcast. I'm your host, Beth Whitworth, and today I am here to talk to you about creating an ideal culture inside of your business. And what I mean by that is the culture with your team, with your leadership, with your management, all of those things that can impact how your business interacts with the world, how it interacts with clients, how it interacts with each other, and really sets the tone for what kind of business you are running. So to start with, I wanted to talk about things that maybe you've experienced and that have impacted how you would like to run your business. So you really need to start with what you would want. What would you want as a member of a team or an employee? What type of environment would you like to be working in? And think about those things that you really disliked. Maybe you were in a situation where you had someone who was a micromanager, where they didn't give you any autonomy. They didn't, trust that you could do the work. You were constantly second guessed. And how did that make you feel? Well, if it didn't make you feel great, which in my experience, it didn't make me feel great, you really start there and say, okay, I don't want that as a culture. And how do you build a team that doesn't need to be micromanaged and that you don't second guess? The other things that I experienced as a younger employee, were things like being unclear on what was expected of me, what I needed to be doing. And that made a very uncomfortable situation. And it also impacted productivity. So if you don't have a position where you feel like you can ask what you should be doing and you just think, oh, and welcome, James, to the video. If you are constantly worried about, are you doing the right thing because you don't know what's expected of you, or you don't know who you're supposed to be reporting to, or who you should be asking questions of, then it doesn't create a culture that makes you feel very comfortable or very secure. So other things that I experienced in my early days in public accounting, it was the culture of clock watching, where other people that you may be working with, they may have no impact on, your career, but they would second guess you on, oh my gosh, you're leaving already, or, oh, you didn't get in by a certain time, or why weren't you here when I was here on Sunday? Those types of things create that feeling of, not being good enough, not doing enough, and also kind of that, are we just here to put in FaceTime? And for me as a business owner, now that I have learned and had decades under my belt of working with and in accounting firms, I realized that mentality that has really been prevalent among accounting firms, which is, okay, when busy season starts, you're showing up even if you don't have work to do, is not a great culture. It sort of, I guess, solidifies that thought that you just need to be there in case somebody needs you, in case the manager is like, oh, I need to dump this on somebody. And for me, that is poor planning on management. If you know you're going to need somebody to be working on something, you need to communicate that with them. So there's a lot of things that happen in the public accounting world, including the stigma around the busy season and what is expected, the number of hours that are put in, even if you don't have productive work to be doing, that you're really just sitting around, and it really creates an atmosphere of, okay, well, I'm going to sit here and do nothing and get paid or get my comp time for it because I'm required to be here, but I don't really feel like I'm putting in anything that's impacting the business. So I do have some experience in working in those types of environments, and it really built and influence the way I want to build my team and my culture. I don't want people to feel like they are unsupported. I don't want them to feel like if they make a mistake that they will be blamed or that they will be something, terrible will happen. Mistakes happen in accounting. Mistakes happen in all businesses, and it's how you react to those mistakes and how you kind of tackle the next step there in any business is what is important. And I think the culture of your business is what makes that successful. So if you have a blaming type of culture, people aren't going to bring their mistakes to you, and they may just get bigger and bigger until it's something that, yep, you find out about it, but you should have known much sooner. And if you have that culture of, yep, you can let me know these things, then you have the ability to get ahead of it. So that really does come from the top down, though. So culture is definitely something that if the leadership is not on board with that type of culture, or you have one person in that leadership or management realm that doesn't buy into all of the things, if you say, okay, we're going to create expectations and hold people to them. We're going to communicate. We're going to do all these things. And you have one person that's back there micromanaging and second guessing and blaming. And there's a good chance that as the leader, as the owner, you may not find out about it until somebody else on your team lets you know. So if you recognize that someone is not fitting in with the things that you don't want, if you don't want something in your firm, you have to be open about it. You have to be able to say, yeah, this is not the kind of person that works well on our team, and we're not going to hire to it, and we're not going to tolerate it. So that's the only clear way you can kind of get to what you want, is to stick to your guns. So most of the time, where you come from, what experiences you've had is what is going to impact what you want. Whether you had experience, as an employer or with a partner, with a coworker, those types of experiences are what you're going to bring into building your own culture. And once you've figured out what you don't want, it's going to be really important that you define what your non-negotiables are. And for me, the non-negotiables are really your company values. And your company values, if you're the owner and you're the sole owner like I am, they really do come from you. They're kind of your personal values, not some big lofty that they're coming. You're not pulling them from somewhere else. You're pulling them from yourself, and you're saying, these are the things that I want my company to stand for. And things like trust, honesty, accountability, service, learning, generosity, positivity, any of these things that you think, are really important for you to have in your company, you're going to define your company values around those. And for Accounting Solutions Group, for my accounting firm, we have 5 values. And I've kind of really boiled them down into some, verbs. So we have, we serve, we solve, we do, we learn, and we care. And then behind that, I have what that means to me and what that should mean to the team. And when I say things like we serve our clients, and we're here to, help them reach their goals, but we also serve each other, and that is the piece that really pulls into the company culture. We want to work as a team. And if someone needs help, we will reach out and help them, on the team. You're not in your own little boat, and if your boat starts sinking, we just let it go. We want to reach out and say, okay, how can I help you? Those are the words that are so important inside my firm. And I believe my team would probably say that that's probably the thing that I multiple times a year, I will hop on in one of our team meetings and say, okay, that's really important. Those are the words that, make me happy, is when I hear people say, what can I do to help you? Whether it's helping a client or helping each other. That's just one of those things that's very important to me. A couple of other of our values is we learn. So we are built on a value of continuing to learn new things, continuing to get better, continuing to take that knowledge and share it with our clients to make them better. And when I hire, if I ask, what is how do you feel about learning, on the job learning, continuing education, learning new softwares, learning new skills? Where are you on that? Because if someone thinks, hey, I already know it all, they're not going to be the good fit for us. We are going to be doing things where we expect people to get certifications, to want to increase their knowledge, to want to better serve their clients by understanding more about a certain software or a certain tax law or any new legislation that's come out. We really kind of epitomized this during the pandemic. So, as you all know, there was a whole bunch of legislation and help that came in the form of loans and forgivable loans, the PPP, the EIDLs. There was a whole bunch of acronyms out there for all the things that we were working through, and they directly impacted our team, and they directly impacted our clients. And in order to kind of support them, to support the clients, support ourselves, we had to dig in and learn this legislation. Not just me, members of my team had to understand, okay, what type of documentation do we need to have? Who qualifies? How do they qualify? What is the timeline for, asking for forgiveness? What is the timeline for reporting to get certain credits? There were so much. And if I had not built a culture of that expectation that we are constantly learning, I could have really, really dropped the ball for my clients that year. If it was all on me and my team was not used to the fact that I'm going to say, hey, go learn this. We really need to know, we need to be the experts here. Let's get ahead of it. It really could have been bad. And I look back on that and think, wow, we were really it was like drinking from a fire hose. Every few weeks there was something new, or we were waiting for clarification, or we were having deadlines that we needed to meet to make sure that, things were spent the right way so that they could get forgiven. And there was a lot going on with that. And I really chalk it up to the fact that we have built a culture of learning in our firm, that we got through that and that we succeeded in helping our clients. And really, it was hard at the time, but it makes everything else you learn after that feel a little easier, because now we have a little more time to do those things. So definitely work on looking at what other, non-negotiables you might have. For me, other non-negotiables a little bit outside of our exact company values, are that I hire to these non-negotiables, is attitude. I need people with positive attitudes who are there wanting to help, wanting to serve, who are reliable. They're reliable to do the work. They're reliable to ask for help. They're reliable to be professional when you're not around. They will fess up, oops, I made a mistake. What can I do to help? What to fix this? And when you have that person that you don't trust on that reliability level, it can really bring down the whole team. Just like I talked about before, if you have somebody in management who is not actually, fulfilling those things that you really don't want in your culture. If somebody's back there micromanaging and you don't know it, and you don't do anything about it. If you've got somebody on the team that you can't rely on to do the work and you're constantly going behind them, or you're hearing things about them from other people on the team, or worst case, from other clients or the client themselves, that they're not doing the things that you thought they were doing, uh, that they're not being professional in communications, that they are, they don't have a positive attitude about getting the work done. When that happens, it's for me, I'm a conflict avoider. So I know that I do not address as quickly as I should. And that is something that can really hurt your culture. So I had an employee at one point who had been with me for a very long time. And every once in a while, I would get something from a client that said, "Hey, I got this communication from the member of your team, and it was, it came across as very just not nice." It was either unprofessional or very accusatory towards the client. And the client really would take offense to that. And I would chalk it up to, yeah, but, that person on my team is getting the job done. The client didn't leave over it, and shame on me. I should have said, absolutely not. We don't tolerate that. Let's, let me have a talk with them. Let me give that warning to say this is not acceptable, and see if, we can turn that around. And so what ultimately happened is that symptom, I should say, of attitude, as it didn't improve, it really just impacted every client, not just one client. And so by the time I did make a change, I know that it had already impacted the clients. It had impacted other members of the team. It had hurt our productivity, and I do blame myself. So now, you know, I have revamped my hiring process to make sure that, anything that I feel is a cultural thing that needs to be part of the team, that someone on the team has to display these attributes, I make sure that I am testing for them. I am hiring for them. I am asking about them in interviews. And that gives me the ability to quickly go back to someone, after I've set expectations, to say, okay, this is something that we talked about before you were hired. This is something that we have expressed as, expectations, that you are professional, that you have a positive attitude with clients or with anybody. And we really just need to make sure that we're hiring to it and not being afraid to then discuss the things if they're falling short in an area, and see if it's something that can actually be kind of turned around. It could be that they were just having a bad day. But if you don't address it and say, hey, that's not okay in our culture, then it can snowball. And that's what happened in my case. The third thing I wanted to talk about in relation to establishing that ideal culture in your business is, I kind of mentioned it at the top, that it comes from leadership. And that means you really have to walk the walk where it counts. So if you expect people to be positive and be reliable, then you need to be positive and you need to be reliable. And I'm not saying that that is something that has to happen every single minute of every single day, but you need to be walking the walk the majority of the time, the higher percentage of the time. There are going to be those times where you have a bad day, that you're in a negative headspace. For me, I suffer from seasonal affective disorder. So when it's not sunny, and it's not sunny for days on end, my attitude and my positivity drop. And I struggle to be a positive person to begin with. And so when I am impacted by this seasonal affective disorder of just being cloudy for days on end, it's really tough for me sometimes to pull myself out of it. And I have to be very cognizant of doing that when I'm working, especially with working with my team, because it's really quick for me to jump into the negative side of things and be like, oh, I wish that client wouldn't have said that. I wish we could have, done something different there. Or I wish, there's a lot of things, and I have to turn it around very quickly. And especially if you want your team not to do the same thing, if you want your team to come to you with not just complaining about a situation, but bringing solutions, you have to be the one that is also doing that. Other areas where you kind of need to walk the walk if you want to get the best out of your team would be, you need to be vulnerable. You need to share things that make you a human to your team, not just their boss. And yes, you are their boss, but that you're a person, and things affect you. So for me, I will say that it was really, really hard a couple years ago when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to share with my team that, I'm not going to be there for all the things for, several months, that I was, obviously my head was in a different space. But to share that with my team was probably equally as hard, if not harder, than sharing it with my family. Um, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm tearing up again. Uh, but my team is part of my family, and that is the culture that I've created. So, but by sharing that with the team, we were actually, very successful during that time when I couldn't be 100% involved with the work. And my team stepped up for me. And because I'm guessing, but I can't say for sure, but unless I ask them, but because I'd been vulnerable with them in the past before that big issue happened, they trusted that I was going to get through this, and we were going to get through it and survive, what could be something that's just, very emotional, very catastrophic, very things that you just don't want to have happen. But I was able to, I am, I'm in remission or whatever. I don't have cancer in my body at this point, and I am thrilled with that, but can't possibly say enough about how my team was able to step in and take care of the business to where I wasn't worried about it while I was going through treatment. So that goes along with, being honest with your team. Expect honesty, but you also have to be honest. You can't, don't blow smoke up their ass. I mean, you have to, say this is really what's going on, and not be afraid to share that. And then the other area, and this is an area that I'm guessing maybe a lot of accountants struggle with, maybe it's just me, but you need to be a cheerleader. You need to be the person that is really getting behind the team and saying, you did a great job. We're doing a great job. We're as a team or as individuals, either way, we are making a difference. And you have to be a cheerleader. And for me, I'll admit that is not something that comes naturally to me. But when I feel like I have worked hard at hiring the right people and have been walking the walk in those other areas with them, then it becomes much easier to be their cheerleader. I'm not necessarily, saying you're not going to be don't be their best friend. You're still their boss. They still have a job to do for which you are compensating them for. But you can't give and give and give as far as workload or new expectations, or like we got through all that pandemic legislation. You can't just, expect it and not also come behind it and say, you did a great job with that, or, keep it up. We're on the downhill slide. Those types of words are important, and they have to be from the heart. So, and like I said, it is much easier when you have that feeling like you have the right people on your team, where you don't have someone on the team that's kind of pulling things down. When you have that, you feel like, okay, if you have that, I should say, you have to make a change. You have to do something. You have to address those issues in order to keep your culture on the ideal side. Otherwise, you're constantly you're only sort of walking the walk. You are walking the walk with these people, but maybe not addressing other things. And it's very easy. We are all very busy business owners. We have lots of things going on, lots of hats that we wear on a day-to-day basis, and addressing things that might be less than positive in your business is usually not things that put people put on the top of their priority list. They sweep it under the rug for a while, or they say we'll deal with it after such and such a time. And I would say that, that is definitely something for me that I need to get better at. And I've needed to get better at it for years. I am better at it. I mean, it's baby steps. And so it's just that natural thing to avoid conflict for me. For a lot of people, it is in their personality, and it is something that you have to consciously work on. So things that you can do to be a good cheerleader, I feel, is to, recognize and reward people, um, and kind of understand how they like to be recognized and rewarded. There are some people that don't want to be called out. Don't call me out in front of people. For me, I probably do more of the kind of the quiet recognition. And, I will give bonuses, or I will give raises, or I will send care packages, and thank people for what they've done and the work that they've done. But I don't want it to be this big thing either, as far as, I don't want people, I don't want it to be a big expectation, but I want people to know that I realize what the work they're doing, and I want to recognize that. The other big thing is not to criticize people in public. If you do have a beef with someone, you need to take it into a private matter, a private discussion. Don't call them out at the team meeting and say, "Hey, why did you do that?" You have to, that will be the way to really destroy your culture, as far as people being afraid to bring things to you, or afraid that if they make a mistake, they're going to be kind of criticized in front of everybody. So don't create that environment. Make sure that if it's recognition, if it's reward, um, then yes, feel free to make that public if that is comfortable with your culture. But if it's something that's negative, don't point it out. Don't point it out to an individual, as far as in a team setting, say, "Hey, you did that wrong, and I'm going to want everybody to know." If it's a big enough issue that needs to be addressed with the whole firm, you say, "Hey, just as a reminder, this is how we do things," without calling people out by name. And then I think the other part of walking the walk is, um, be prepared to give honest feedback and set expectations. So many people, and I've definitely done this in the past, hire somebody and don't really give them a set of expectations. What do you expect them to do? Not just tasks, but how do you expect them to conduct themselves? How do you expect them to communicate with you, as far as being a part of your team? Who do they report to? Set those expectations so they know on what is the chain of command. And maybe it's just you and your employees. You don't have any management level at this point, but you need to let them know, okay, if you need to talk to me, you need to schedule an appointment, or you need to schedule a time, or get on my calendar, or, shoot me a message in Teams and let's talk about it, or hop on a call, whatever you prefer. You want to set those expectations of how you want to be communicated with. And you also want to expect them to give you feedback, and you to give them feedback on things. So, like I said, this is something that um, it goes both ways. For me, I do not have a problem with anybody on my team saying, "Hey, I don't know that this is the right way we should be doing this," or "I don't like how this is rolling out, and let's talk about it." Let's figure out, okay, what are the concerns? Because if my team is uncomfortable with something that we're doing, that we're rolling out a new software, or we're pushing to do a process a different way, or any of those things, I trust them to bring me good feedback because they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones interacting and talking to the clients about it. They're the ones who have to be able to make sure that things are getting done on time. And I rely on them to give me some pushback. And I like to think we have an open enough communication among our team and inside our culture that it's okay to bring criticism to me. Give me feedback. Hey, I don't like the way this is going. And the on my end, I need to listen. So that is a huge communication skill. Need to make sure that as a team and as a culture, we are listening to each other, that we are open to having discussions, that we are open to other opinions, that we are open to having kind of to work through it to make sure we're going down the right path because we don't always. I'm a visionary. I will jump into something and new and shiny and say, hey, I think we need to do this. And I need my processors and organizers to come back and bring me back down to the ground, and say, hey, yeah, maybe that's a great idea, but we can't do it right now. We don't have the bandwidth, and be open enough to have that conversation. So listening and being open and reach out to your members of your team. How are they doing? If you see something that maybe you feel like maybe the work it doesn't feel like it's as good as it was, what's going on? Maybe there's something personal that they are going through that you don't know about. And that's an opportunity to say, hey, I get it. Things happen, and in our personal life, it impacts our work, and our work impacts our personal life. But let's reach out. How can I help you? Is there work I need to reallocate for the moment until you get through something? Whatever it is, let your people know that if that's important to you, that you are open to having conversations like that. I never want a member of my team to feel like, they've got so much on their plate work wise, and maybe they have an aging parent, maybe they have a sick child, maybe they have, their own personal health issue, anything like that. I don't want it to be a secret. I want them to be able to feel like they can share that with me, and we can figure out a way to get them through that. Maybe it's a reduction in hours. Maybe it's shifting some work. Maybe whatever that is, we can work through it. And I hope everybody on my team knows that. I think the big key on the communication side is that you share your values, your non-negotiables, your vision, and then you walk the walk. Your team won't know that you're okay with them fessing up to a mistake unless you tell them that that's the culture that you have built. We are not a firm of perfect people. No business is, and mistakes are going to happen. But I probably say it way more often than I should, which is nobody dies in accounting. So when everything feels like an emergency, or you feel like a mistake was made and it's unrecoverable, it really is. Everything can be fixed in one way or another. And so having that comfort of knowing that, I have their back. That's the culture I want to have. And they've proven that they have my back. So that is definitely, for me, that is the definition of ideal culture. Okay, I hope this helped. I think that everybody wants to have that ideal culture. And if there's a way to get there, I think there's those things you need to think about. What don't you want? What are non-negotiable? How do I walk the walk? And then, make sure that the communication and the visibility there is open. So, okay, everybody. That is all I have for today. You could do me a huge favor, and wherever you're listening to this, or if you're watching this on YouTube, if you would subscribe to my channels there. And so one, you don't miss an episode, but two, it kind of helps other people find what I'm out here putting out. And I would love it if you found this interesting or somewhat helpful, if you would share it with somebody. That would be so appreciated. Okay, that's all I have for now. Everybody have a great week. And if you need me, you know where to find me.